The following is a paid advertisement. The views expressed are the sole responsibility of the advertiser.
You Have Real Estate is proudly sponsored by Renewal by Andersen, your full-service window and door replacement company. Learn more at rbafla.com.
Welcome to You Have Real Estate, brought to you by Renewal by Andersen. I am your host, Justin Clark. A wonderful show ahead for you today, but first, the opening statement. Real estate, weird place right now, let's be honest. I feel an overwhelming trend of a market correction a little bit. Now, this is not going to be 2008. This is not going to be a market collapse, but there is a correction. The house values are shrinking a little bit. But right now, you are married and you own real estate with your spouse. But we're thinking about breaking up. We're thinking about getting a divorce. How does a divorce affect your ownership in that real estate, and how can you prepare for that? Great question. A question that we're going to answer by asking real questions. Every week in here on the program, we ask real questions to the trend-setting people in Central Florida's real estate community. Kick it off today with my good buddy, another attorney. I know two attorneys at the same time. Terrible. Attorney John Marshall. John, how are you? Good to see you.
Good. Nice to see you.
So this is an issue. When people get divorced, we own real estate together. How do we deal with that? How do we split it up? But how do we prepare for that in advance?
So when a divorce is imminent, and actually, let's say you filed, it can take a while before it happens.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, one of the things I tell people is we can't do much with the title to the property because how it's titled will remain that way until a divorce is finalized. Nonetheless, for your separate property, Florida is what we call a separate property state. So what you bring into the marriage is yours. What you produce is yours. What you can actually do is establish an estate plan that says anything that's mine, until I'm divorced, I technically cannot disinherit my spouse, but I can tie it up in a trust. We call it a Q-tip trust. And we can tie it up in that trust so that if you died before the divorce is finalized, even though you have to leave assets to spouse may get some benefit off of that, but you're really controlling where the assets are going to go when the spouse dies at a later date.
This is fascinating, actually. And, I'm getting married in January, and Michaela actually, comes from a little bit of money, for sure. And so I imagine in her head, she's thinking, okay, well, or her dad's probably thinking, how do I people are laughing, I'm sorry, but it's true. I mean, this is something that people actually think about. How do I make sure that the money that I've worked for all this time that I want to go to my daughter doesn't go to the person that she's going to marry in case of, heaven forbid, it doesn't work out?
So there are several ways we can do it. Like Michaela and I have been talking about prenup.
What, you've been talking about?
No, we have not. So it's in fact the first time they've come in conversation.
Yeah.
No, the thing of it is we can do a prenuptial agreement where the two parties say, this is how we agree that we're going to control the assets that come into the marriage. But if you're a parent and you're leaving assets to a child and you say, I want that child to get it, one of the things that we can do is we can leave those assets to the child in a trust. Now, that trust sets the parameters in terms as to how it can be accessed, when it can be accessed. But one of the benefits of that is the ability to work in some language that allows that trust to be protected from the claims of a spouse in a divorce. And even though the law doesn't necessarily allow all of that to work exactly the way we'd like under Florida law, if we're using a trust and we use things like trust protectors, we even have the choice of changing the venue to maybe a different state that has better protections on that. So again, we always want to draft a trust with the plan in mind, but you want to also have things built into it that allow for change in circumstances, like change in the law, that allows us then to modify the trust even post-death to still accomplish what you want to accomplish.
So I'm watching this show right now, right? And I'm a darn good dad, and I care about my family. I care about my family more than anything in the world, but I'm working hard. I don't have a whole lot of time to sit around and plan for the future because I'm trying to work hard to make sure my family is provided for. But we know at some point we're going to pass away, and who knows what could happen tomorrow, right? Is there a certain amount of money I need to have in the bank to say, you know what, I need to call a John Marshall to make sure everything is covered in case something does, God forbid, happen to me?
Technically, no. One of the things that in my practice, we want to know what your assets are from the standpoint of it helps determine what type of plan we put in place. But quite frankly, if you have a home, even if it's mortgage, you've got equity in the home, there's value there. You've got assets in the bank. I don't care if it's $5,000 or $500,000. There are still assets there. So we do want to plan appropriately. Whether or not we use a will or a trust may be dependent on the type of assets that they are, but we still want to sit down and go through that. And I know there are some attorneys that say, I don't take a client unless they have this much money. Quite frankly, I've been there. I've worked for firms like that. That's not what I like because, quite honestly, to me, everyone needs to have some type of estate plan in place. I'm not going to limit who comes to see me. What I am going to look at is what are their assets and how do we custom tailor it to them in particular.
Life feels like chaos a lot of times for moms and dads out there. And, even with younger kids and you're getting them ready for school, you're trying to work, it feels a little chaotic. How do your clients feel when some of that chaos, knowing that if something, God forbid, happens to them, everything is under control and taken care of? It feels like it alleviates some of that chaos in their minds.
It's funny. I think a lot of people kind of ignore the idea that I'm going to die. And men are really bad about that. Before I was an attorney, I was an insurance agent. If I sold used cars, I've hit the bottom 3 rungs of life, I guess. But the thing of it is, when I would sell life insurance, women understood the need for life insurance. Men, we don't want to admit we're mortal, but we are. And so when we actually stop to think about those things, it can feel chaotic. And I think a lot of men ignore it. A lot of women want to talk about it, but they don't know where to take that conversation. That's where an attorney like myself can come in and say, here's what the law says. Here's what the options are. Here's what you can do. So when you do worry about those things, maybe after you're laying down, you've had a busy day, your head hits the pillow, but your brain is now running full speed because now those are the things that creep in and worry you. Well, we can get rid of that worry. But it does take having a very frank conversation and sitting down and addressing those realities that we just would like to ignore.
Totally agree. John Marshall, always a pleasure to see you, brother. Thanks for doing such a great job for our audience here. And it does take some of that chaos out. When you love your family, you care about your family, you need to make sure that they're taken care of if something does happen to you. You got to call John. He'll be happy to sit down and talk about these issues with you and get it all straightened out. Quick break. When we return, You Have Real Estate continues. Welcome to our house. I mean, you spend more time here than I do, but it is hurricane season. Our windows are terrible. Yeah. When hurricanes roll through, we actually go to your parents' house because we feel safer there because you don't feel the wind vibration. Go feel the windows right now. Hit the windows like that.
Okay.
This is not a window.
No, and
it should
ever
there's
be relied
condensation
from just our sprinkler.
But during a storm like that, you wonder why you feel the vibrations. Even when a summer storm rolls through, we feel the vibrations here. That's why Dan Brigman is here today, Renewal by Anderson. Dan, as a man, I want to feel like I have a safe, protected place for my family. And I don't here. I'm not ready for hurricane season because of the windows that we have. What can I do as a family guy to make sure my family's safe during the storm season?
Well, first thing you have to do is you got to do what, you've got to inspect your windows. You've got to know and learn about what you have. And Justin, what you have is not a hurricane window. That's not going to stop anything from coming in this house. If a shingle or a terracotta tile were to blow off in your next door neighbor's house in a windstorm and hit that, and you're sitting at this table, it is not a good day. All right, it is coming through. So what we have to do is we have to get coastal windows in this house, and we have to get them in as soon as we can.
I totally agree. The financing that you have, too, is fantastic. You make it super easy for me to afford windows in my house.
Yes, we do. Look, we know that no home improvement project is cheap, right? I mean, most of us just don't carry, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 around in our pocket, right? And so what you have to do is you have to make it affordable for our homeowners. And that's just what we do. Through our easy pay plans, we have multiple different ways that we do business. We have 12 months, no interest, 18 months, 24 24 months. We even have 180-month low interest plans. Some of them as low as 5.9. You can't even buy a house.
You
for
can't.
that low.
Not even close. Do you feel? Thank you, Dan, for coming. By the way, do you feel better?
I do.
Are you going to stop yelling at me?
I mean, Dan's here, so Dan's going to save the day. RBA is always going to save the day.
Renewal by Anderson, QR code on the screen right now. Get your family prepared for hurricane season and storm season. Even if the hurricane doesn't come through, the storm season gets scary here in Florida as well. Do it today. Welcome back to the show. And this is a question we addressed quite a bit, as we should. So you're in a relationship, whether you're married or not, you own a house with your significant other, and then you're going to go through a divorce or go through some kind of breakup. What happens with that house? And the question I get the most is, who has to leave? Does the husband have to leave? The wife? I don't know. And that's why we do the show. Fenya DelFyette is here, a family law attorney. Hi, how are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you again.
So that is the question. Who has to leave?
Well, hopefully the parties can come to an agreement where one will actually vacate. If not, it's something that the judge can actually address. Unfortunately, it can take some time for that type of hearing. It's not automatic, even if the spouses are not getting along. One key and very important thing for parties to think about is just because you do leave and it's voluntary, you don't lose any rights to your property, to your home. So if things are acrimonious and sometimes dangerous, it's usually good for somebody to actually get out before things get volatile.
So let's say that both parties just draw a line in the sand. I'm not leaving, you're not leaving. How does that work then? You have to set a hearing and a judge decides? You
do. And before you even get to that hearing, the judge is going to force you to do mediation. So it can be a lengthy process, 2-3 months before you get a judge's determination. Who's staying, who's going.
So if both parties do stay there, what advice do you give to your clients? Do you say, hey, one of you stay upstairs, one downstairs, different bedrooms? What advice do you give?
Absolutely, to make it as calm and peaceful as possible, especially if there are children involved. Yeah.
It's really kind of sad when you think about it, children involved and everyone staying there and, again, drawing a line in the sand. I'm not leaving, you're not leaving, and the kids have to hear all of this. It's a very sad situation. Okay, but so we are husband and wife, let's say. So we both own the house together. I want to sell the house. She doesn't want to sell the house. How does that work through the divorce process?
Again, hopefully through the process of negotiation, something can be resolved between the parties. Again, the judge at the end of the case, if it goes to trial, will be the one to determine if the house is sold and to whom. So it could be a straight out third-party sale where you sell to an independent person, or you could sell to the other party where they would be paying you off for the equity in the home.
I'm a lawyer. You're a lawyer. We all understand that. I feel like in the family law space, there are some lawyers out there, and sorry, I know a lot of lawyers watch the show, that want to fight over every single little issue to jack up the legal fees. They're fighting over things like, oh, who's going to get the stuffed animal from the upstairs bedroom? Do you see that a lot in family law?
Yeah, unfortunately, emotions are running high, and usually somebody feels betrayed and they would like to get back at the other person. My advice is always, this is not the time to be petty. You're going to be spending, it's going to be an emotional turmoil, and you're going to be spending a lot of money to get that stuffed animal.
Yeah, well, Fenya, but she cheated on me. I need to get the house. I need to get all of the money. She cheated on me. What does that mean in divorce court?
Yeah, if you're not going to be reasonable, you're going to have a stranger, meaning the judge, decide your future, your children's future, if there are children involved. So now is the time to, put your feelings aside and perhaps look at it as a business decision so you can start your new life, new chapter, in the best way possible.
How does the family law court look at someone who, oh, well, she cheated on him or he cheated on her? Does that have any bearing whatsoever in family law?
Potentially, if there was a dissipation of marital assets. So if somebody has an affair and they're spending all this money and other things that were marital assets on the affair, that could potentially be a negative for the person that did have the affair.
Really? So I read a case the other day out of Virginia, and they're like, well, we were going to get a divorce, but the Virginia court made us wait a year to see if we could work it out. How does that work in Florida?
So Fortunately, we are a no-fault state, and the court does not impose any time limit to move forward. So we can file and get the divorce done as soon as possible, as long as the parties are willing to work it out.
So a halfway reasonable couple who are going through a divorce, yeah, we're fighting over some things like, you know, the children and time sharing and maybe some alimony. But we're not having crazy fights. What is a normal time frame for getting divorced in Florida?
I would say anywhere from 3 to 6 months if everything is being cleaned up and finalized, with everybody in agreement. Yeah, so it can be pretty quickly. It's just really a matter of everybody coming to agreement that we're going to get this done.
Fenya, always good to see you. Thanks for coming on. And I would say, look, if you're going through a divorce, try to be as reasonable as you can. Cooler heads should prevail at times if you think about it, because the more angry that you are, the more you want to fight over little things, the more you're going to end up spending on legal fees. And there are a bunch of lawyers out there who will be happy to take these legal fees from you, fighting over things that really don't matter in the long run. A quick break. You Have Real Estate continues.
Can you believe we're planning a wedding?
I mean, I'm excited about it. It's a lot. Guest list, cake tastings, figuring out what we're going to have for dinner. Is it chicken, fish, one of the above? You know, the vegetarian options. AC units.
Yeah, speaking of new AC units, new season of life might mean it's time for a new air conditioning unit. And with Duquesne, they actually just came out with this new refrigerant, which is actually more efficient.
Getting married is a little bit complicated, actually. But I got to tell you, the AC and making sure that the family here is comfortable, not as complicated as a wedding, that's for sure.
No, and with Duquesne, it's not just about reliable products. It's knowing that you can really trust your system, just like a good marriage built on trust.
Well, I think trust is very important, especially here in Florida. Trusting your AC unit is incredibly important because you walk into a house, it's 100-something degrees outside. You want to make sure that your AC unit is working perfectly so you're comfortable inside.
Yeah, so definitely do your homework because Duquesne has that new AC unit, really just kind of something more efficient, something more user-friendly, and the new coolant, man, that's a game changer.
And do you want to have an outdoor wedding this time of year?
No, it's so hot. I mean, and one of the best things about it being hot in Florida is we can fall in love with our home again because we have the new AC unit.
Just like I fell in love with you. And now we're getting married.
I know.
And quite frankly, we should have the wedding inside here at our house.
Because it's nice and cool.
Because it feels great in here.
Yes, well, thanks, Duquesne. We definitely love you and we love our home. And now that it's cool, and I love you too.
Sometimes.
Most of the time.
Most of the time. A lot of the time, let's say.
Yeah. Well, do yourself a favor and look no further than Duquesne.
If you own property in the Villages and you want to rent the property, or you have family who is looking to rent property in the Villages, trying to figure out where they want to buy, there's a great website designed just for you. It's villagershomesforrent.com. The person behind all this madness, Judy, is here. Judy, you're changing the game on how rentals are done in the Villages.
Right. So we are purely an owner-managed website, meaning that the owners are handling the affairs themselves. The renters are talking directly to a homeowner who is an expert with their property. The owners are paying me a small fee to advertise on the platform, and we're attracting the renters to the site for them. So it's a good synergy of owner-renter communication.
The Villages is really on fire and a wonderful place to live. For someone who hasn't been there, how would you describe the Villages?
It's promoted heavily as a lifestyle place, and I can't make it better than that, right? So if you're golfers or if you're into sports and clubs and entertainment and music, it's the place to be.
And the website is the place to go. Again, if you own real estate in the Villages, you want to rent it out, it's not going to cost you very much money at all. Or maybe you have family who wants to move to Florida or spend some seasons down here. Villagershomesforrent.com. Judy, thank you so much. Come back soon, please.
Well,
all right.
Thank you.
Welcome back to the show. Fresh off a little cruise with me, Elisha Lopez is here at Cal Realty World. Hi, Elisha. How are you? Good to see you the other day.
Awesome.
What are you feeling in this market right now? Let's be honest with each other. What do you feel right now? And again, real estate is not always nationwide. It can be done in pockets in some ways. You really focus in the Ocala, northern Florida area. What are you feeling right now?
It's definitely a mix.
Yeah.
And I really think in Ocala it used to be sections like southeast, southwest, northeast, northwest, but now it's more like per neighborhood. So it just depends on the popularity of a neighborhood and whether it's more towards the buyer or more towards the seller.
Yeah, I mean, you work with a lot of sellers. You do a lot of listing work, of course. How often are you having to have that conversation with sellers now that we're going to have to reduce this price?
All like daily.
Yeah.
Yes, and it's not an easy conversation, but I mean, the data's all there. It's factual. We can't ignore it.
Yeah, I mean, really from right when COVID started, as the prices started skyrocketing, you know, the people who were selling their houses were asking whatever they wanted to and getting it. And people were literally fighting to buy the house. And now it's going the opposite way. You know, we've gotten to a point where we are used to selling it so quickly, and that's not happening, where we have to have these tough conversations about reducing the price. How do I decide what I should really be reducing the price to?
So we went through like a little phase that we just needed to be the best price in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
But now we really need to be like 10-15% below. And I know that's a really hard pill to swallow, because if we just hit that mark at the lowest price in the subdivision, it's still sitting there, because then you have other properties with nicer features, nicer landscaping, or maybe they're offering some kind of a bonus, things like that. And it's just like you have to be like 10-15% lower to actually be the one to make it worth the buyer to make an offer.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking to buy or sell or invest in real estate anywhere in northern Florida, I'm talking Villages, Ocala, anywhere up there, Gainesville, it's a really big part of Florida. I think there's one place to turn. She has all of the connections, and the QR code for Elisha Lopez is on the screen right now. She'll send you the listings as they come live so you can make an offer quickly, so you can get a good deal on the property. Maybe you're sitting on a bunch of land and you've been sitting on it for generations and you want to sell it. We need to figure out what it's worth. Elisha will be happy to tell you what it's worth. And we're hearing a lot about seller concessions now as well. There was no such thing as seller concessions 2 or 3 years ago. They disappeared for a while because it was so easy to sell properties. Seller concessions are coming back. What does that mean exactly, though, when you hear seller concession?
So it's for the property owner, what they're going to necessarily give back or offer to the buyer. And it could come in so many forms. It could be reducing the price. It could be for the buyer's closing costs. And sometimes that might need to go on top of the purchase price. Yeah. And that could also be for the buyer's agent compensation. But when we come to buyer's agent compensation, it's just really not a great idea for a seller not to offer a buyer's compensation, because we need them. How else are we going to sell your property? Because the buyer's agents are the ones that have the buyers.
Are you ever seeing a seller now, and because this is the whole settlement that happened last year, I know what's going on, where a buyer's agent, you're now kind of locked in with that buyer, so you're going to get paid. But traditionally, the seller always paid all of the real estate commission, buyer and seller. I think it's still happening like that, just a little bit different.
It is. It's all how the listing agent educates the seller, because some sellers like, oh, I don't have to pay. Well, that's a conversation that we have to have with the owner and explain the why. So the listing agent needs to know that. And sometimes a newer agent, because they don't have all of that experience, if they're not trained right, they don't know how to explain it correctly. And then you have a seller ends up really frustrated because they were like misinformed in a sense. So everybody in the transaction really needs to either be experienced or have a team backing them up that's experienced, that is helping guide them through, because there's just too many little things to mess up on these days.
Of course. I think the power of your agent and broker right now have never been more important. The knowledge and experience and their contacts, I think it's huge when it comes to getting your real estate transaction done and really in your favor also. I was talking to a lot of your agents the other day as well. Great people, just fantastic agents and even better people. But the way they talk about the Ocala, Marion County area and the lifestyle up there, they love it.
Yeah.
You know?
And funny thing is that, coming from South Florida, a lot of my agents are actually from South Florida as well. And, we're like beach people, city people, sunshine, all of that. But we just transplanted up to Marion County, and it's home, and our heart's there, and we absolutely love it.
And it doesn't mean you have to be a gator hunter all of a sudden to live in Ocala by any means, but
no,
it is.
You can swim with them if you want.
No, thank you.
I know.
Maybe the manatees. That's about as far as I'm going. It's just a simpler way of life, I feel like, and it's still growing up there, but it's just it's a little slower paced. People seem to be a little bit nicer. That's
they
how I
are,
see it.
actually.
Elisha Lopez, Ocala Realty World. QR code on the screen for her right now. She'll send you the listings today. You can have listings in your inbox today. Thank you to our great guests, to our amazing crew. Most importantly, thank you. See you again next week for more You Have Real Estate.
The proceeding was a paid advertisement. The views expressed were the sole responsibility of the advertiser.